if Uniswap is successful, it's going to be almost entirely a zero-sum withdrawal from all these other chains that are going to lose a lot of their liquidity and lose a lot of their TVL to Unichain. They're aiming for, I'm going to suck up all the liquidity from Ethereum. Like, that's the wild success case.
Not a dividend. It's a tale of two quants.
Now, your losses are on someone else's balance sheet.
Generally speaking, airdrops are kind of pointless anyways.
Unnamed trading firms who are very involved.
I like that ETH is the ultimate concept.
DeFi protocols are the antidote to this problem.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Chopping Block. Every couple of weeks, the four of us get together and give the industry insider's perspective on the crypto topics of the day. So quick intros. First, we got Tom, the DeFi maven and master of memes.
Hello, everyone.
Next, we got Robert, the crypto connoisseur and czar of Superstate.
Good afternoon.
Next, we've got Tarun, the Giga Brain and Grand Poobah at Gauntlet.
Yo.
And I'm Hasib, the head hype man at Dragonfly. We're early stage investors in crypto, but I want to caveat that nothing we say here is an investment advice, legal advice, or even life advice. Please see choppingblock.xyz for more disclosures. So boys, market seems to be alive once again. Seems like prices can actually go up. How are we all feeling? I think, Robert, you were just telling us that you're not allowed to feel anything anymore, given that you're now a TradFi guy.
No.
Is that correct?
I asked if that was true.
Yeah, pre-show, Tarun asked if me as a TradFi guy could even possibly enjoy a crypto rally anymore. And I said, of course. There's nothing greater than when crypto finally starts to go up again.
Robert, do you have any meme coins?
It depends what you consider a meme coin.
What's on the boundary that you're not sure whether it's a meme coin?
I own some Bitcoin ETFs that you might call meme coins. No, I'm kidding.
I own Bitcoin, BITCOIN?
No, I don't own any meme coins currently. There are times in the past where I've dabbled, but like zero.
Zero meme coins. Okay, that's unfortunate. Well, meme coins have been crushing. It seems like kind of on every leg up, meme coins are outperforming most of the, as they call them, VC coins. There's kind of few other standout stuff going on. So actually maybe a good segue to talk about one of the big stories that has been occupying a lot of crypto Twitter is what people are starting to call the Memecoin Supercycle. So I always have good feelings whenever people are bringing up supercycles, and this one has been coined by Murad. So Murad, he kind of goes back a long way. He originally ran a hedge fund. He's an ex-Princeton guy, kind of ran in a lot of the kind of Princeton crypto circles. And last cycle, he was a super Bitcoin maxi, if I recall. And he ended up having a hedge fund that blew up, I think, after 3 Arrows exploded, if I recall correctly. I think
no. It was March 12th, March 2020, Black Thursday. Yeah.
Oh, it was Black Thursday when he blew up. So he
adapted.
He was running a hedge fund.
I think that was the name.
Adaptive.
Like BitMEX had this outage, and they had like all of their VAR, like all of their funds were on BitMEX and got liquidated during a 45-minute outage or something. It was a little bit one of these things where it's like, I feel like kind of both. Like the exchange and the counterpart both made mistakes. You know, mistakes were made.
Well, mistakes were made in a wallet he controlled. Fund went down, and he sort of disappeared from crypto for it feels like a couple years. And he reemerged within the last call it 18 months, and has become this meme coin mega bull. And as of recently, he was considered by Kaito, which is a portfolio company, to be ranked the #1 influencer in crypto. Overtaking Ansem and overtaking many of the other folks who've been, driving a lot of the meme coin cycle. So he's been advocating for this thing he calls the Memecoin Supercycle, and he gave a talk about this at Token 2049 that a lot of people are now talking about. And his claim is that the era of all crypto assets moving in unison is over. Meme coins represent the spiritual reincarnation of the 2017 ICO wave. If you look at all the meme coins, they're still pretty small in absolute terms, about 40 to 50 billion in total market cap. However, they turn over much, much more than any of the quote unquote VC coins, which characterize most of the other altcoins. His claim, there's a few very quotable lines from here. One of them is that altcoins aren't primarily about tech and meme coins aren't primarily about memes. Both are simply tokenized communities. And the meme coins have this structural advantage because of the fact that they are building these really strong religions and cults that the VC coins are no longer able to effectively create because there are too many insiders and there's too much dumping and there's too much of this kind of structural bullshit that makes it more difficult for the VC coins to win relative to the meme coins. So his claim is that you're going to see crypto become more and more dominated by these meme coins, and they're going to overtake the altcoin tech story. This is the death of the VCs, the revolt of the public. That's all part of the meta narrative that now is coming to dominate more and more of the crypto Twitter timeline. So wanted to get your guys' reactions. We've seen over the last year meme coins grow and continue to dominate the meta. What do you guys think about this Memecoin Supercycle thing? Tom, I see you grinning. What's your reaction?
Yeah, I was just saying before the show, I hated this fucking talk. First of all, like, I think there's a question of if it's prescriptive or descriptive. I think if it's descriptive, I'm more open to it. Like, it's more just saying that objectively, yeah, meme coins are outperforming for these reasons, which I totally agree with. I think if it's prescriptive and it's trying to sort of advocate for this Memecoin Supercycle, this feels like extremely, I think, cynical and kind of sad. Like, yes, there is obviously, a purpose of, being a VC to allocate capital effectively and generate returns for your investors. But, you in theory should be doing that through creating value and new inventions and things that are good and sort of create the increased utility for, the world or for the industry or for whatever it might be. It's not just about sort of PvP trading. And I think his point of view, and granted, if I were in his shoes and were running a hedge fund or running my own prop capital for a very sort of short-termist thing, yeah, I would totally be trading meme coins. Like, that's sort of the point. But it feels like it's kind of not really understanding the distinction between these two objectives. Like, this is not about sort of allocating capital efficiently if you're just literally trying to pump this thing. But I think also, and like maybe to be fair, this is like an ESL thing, but I just thought like the wording on it was like really bad. Like, he has this slide, what is it? Talking about, like the utility of meme coins, and it's like having fun, loneliness reduction, identity, finding a similar crew, hope provisioning, friendship. I'm like, okay, that's all the same thing. All you're just saying is like a community and like a group of people, like a guild. That's all the same thing. Like, it's like like you have to like hit your 10,000 word count, but the papers due at midnight, and you're just like you're pulling up the source.com and like throwing a bunch of shit. I mean, that's basically what this is, and it was not. It's maybe a succinct talk, and that's why people like it. But I don't know. I just like. It's kind of like what are we doing here? Like, what is the purpose of this conversation?
I think there is credence in the idea that social consensus / memes have value, right? I go all the way back to Bitcoin, which is Bitcoin's value really is based on social consensus at the end of the day. And like, in some squishy sense, it is also a meme coin, in that the idea of Bitcoin spreads from person to person, and along the way, more people become believers. Some people call this religion, other people call this memes, other people call this a shelling point. It's like, it's all of the same thing. And, you can't argue that like Bitcoin originally isn't a product of this as well. And, we all agree that Bitcoin has value. We all agree it has value because of its market price that, indicates that it has value. But it's formed that through the social consensus process over, 14 years or so, right? Having experienced that, there's nothing, limited by the laws of physics that prevents another token based purely out of social consensus or memery or whatever from achieving, breakout success. Like, there's not. But I do think that Bitcoin crowds out a lot of other ideas. I think that, other meme coins crowd each other out. Like, I don't think there's a genuine path for there to be a $10 trillion asset, created out of, the 947,000th random Solana meme coin that somebody deploys, right? And so, I do think there's credence to memes and meme coins. I just don't necessarily think that there's going to be, sustainable breakout success for meme coins as financial assets in speculation. And so, I take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's really questioning like, is Dogecoin going to go away, or is Shiba or WIF, are these things going to go away? Like, they're probably not going to go away. They've been around basically forever, and something like that will always exist. I think the Memecoin Supercycle thesis is much stronger claim than that. The claim is that these things are the claim, I guess, is a sort of collapsing of the distinction between the VC coins and the meme coins, right? What Murad's claim fundamentally is that these two things are basically trying to do the same thing. They both are basically just vehicles of speculation, and the meme coins are better ways of doing it because it's part and parcel of this financial nihilism stuff of that, the falling away of this illusion that any of this stuff is useful and that it does anything. This is all just kind of, tech circle jerk nonsense. Like nobody's really using, fucking Celestia or Unitoken or any of these things for anything useful. And so therefore, if it's all about just people telling a story and creating vibes and building a community of people who quote unquote get rich together, as many people have described the Solana story of like, oh, people went through this valley of darkness and they got rich together. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that you can recreate that much more efficiently if you remove the VCs, you remove the tech circle jerk, you remove all this other stuff. And in the future, this will get outcompeted by the meme coins. There are better ways of creating this kind of this big role play that we're all doing together that is speculating on tokens. That's Murad's claim. And I think that's not just, oh, okay, yeah, meme coins have a place and memes have value. It's that meme coins will eat everything. That's his claim.
Yeah, I think that doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah, I think there's also a scale component to this too, where it's like, it's kind of like when people say like, oh, like Monster Energy has like outperformed Google over the past like 15 years. I'm like, yeah, that's because
Abercrombie and Fitch outperformed NVIDIA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, these are like tiny companies compared to several $trillion companies. And so obviously, yes, it's easier to outperform when you require 2 orders of magnitude less capital. A very similar thing happening with meme coins, where it's like, where is the actual capital that's going to deploy into these things? Again, I came out of the gate too harsh. I think if I were in Murad's shoes, or frankly, if I were in a retail trader's shoes, I would probably agree more with this sentiment, which is like, yeah, maybe it's easier for me to buy into this thing. I think, again, it is describing kind of the phenomenon that's been happening in the past 2 years, but like it feels kind of disingenuous. Or I don't know if it's intentional on his part or if he just genuinely doesn't understand like kind of the purpose of a VC or kind of like where the returns come from. It feels like it's sort of this like PvP hedge fund mindset of like, oh, I get into something earlier than you and then I sell it and that's how we make money, versus like, no, I funded something that creates some value that the market is realizing is valuable, and like that's how sort of the GDP of the space goes up. And it feels like that sort of utility creation idea like doesn't really exist in this Memecoin Supercycle story.
Tarun, what's your take?
I'm probably more charitable than probably both Tom and Leshner. Maybe closer to Leshner in that I think the VC coins have had a calamitous problem in their inflation curves and unlocks and all of this stuff that like has kind of made the like airdrop hunting type of thing even worse and more competitive in a way that like I can see why you would say that it's almost like the meme coin cabal insiders are more fair in some ways than a lot of the token launches and airdrops. So I think it's more a complaint about the airdrop mechanisms and like the like how the unlocks work than it really is a thing about the utility. I mean, I know there's kind of this idea that, hey, there's this circle jerk, whatever, about the technology, but I feel like the real thing, and this is a sense of anger that I feel oftentimes the most when I leave the US. I think in the US, everyone in crypto is like in it for the tech and like not ironic. And when you go to Europe, everyone is kind of in it for the tech, ironic. And then you go to Asia and everyone is not in it for the tech at all. And there's kind of this like thing where I think people in Asia, I would argue, were sort of abused by a lot of the way different airdrops worked. And meme coins seem like a more fair version of that. And that's, to me, that's where the anger, I think, kind of that powers this sentiment comes from. The question of how it will change is just like, hey, a bunch of airdrops have horrible performance and people mark losses, and then all of a sudden you have to. So like, I actually think I prefer thinking of it as like meme coins are competitive with these, but they'll both, there'll be some improvement to the economics of a lot of these coins that hopefully will be driven by the fact that like you can't take for granted your users the way that people had been doing in 2022 and 2023. I think like 2021 set this like bad precedent in a lot of ways with the abuse of users prior to launching a token. That
when you say the abuse of users, can you elaborate? What do you mean?
I think there was just a lot of like false promises of like, hey, if you put your capital into my liquidity pool, you'll get this much of the airdrop. And then like oh, oops, sorry, the points don't convert at the price you thought. I thought they were converting 1-to-1. Now they're converting 1-to-10. You know, like there was just a lot of chicanery, I think, that came from like how the realized token events occurred versus like what was sort of implied. And I feel like that the whole complaints about these like low float, high FTV things are exactly dual to the meme coins, which are like, hey, everything's floating immediately, or like most of it, right? Like so there's this kind of this interesting thing of like this feels more like a reaction to that than anything else. And like I'm not sure I buy his precise thesis, but I do agree that there's going to be some relative value trade between these coins where like the airdrops kind of users didn't get what they thought they would get, right? Like I wouldn't say this is like a thing where it's like, oh, the FTC would like go after this, although who knows in the current FTC. But like it does feel like you read a lot of the blogs about like, oh, why you should put stuff in my protocol. And then you look at like what happens after the airdrop, and like that delta is clearly some anger, right? Like that.
So you're saying you're intellectually long meme coins as a category and you're intellectually short VC coins as a category, but you fall short of this supercycle hypothesis.
Yeah, I don't think it's supercycle.
Well, you're saying there's a relative value trade.
I think there's a relative value trade that will flip, right? I think the VC investments will have better unlock schedules, airdrops, whatever. Like they'll have a different, like you already see this with how the point systems have crashed, right? Like in the last 6 months, 3 months.
So you're saying then that this is sort of retail chastising the entrepreneurs and the VC-backed projects, and the VC-backed projects are adapting.
Yes.
This seems still like a far cry from being like sympathetic to Murad's thesis, though.
I'm not sympathetic as much as like I just feel like the thing that's missing in the like, oh, you don't care about technology or utility thing is actually this is the underlying market force, not the utility. The utility stuff is like a nice just so story that you can package and tell. But really, I think it's this that it's getting.
I agree in terms of price action. I think it's absolutely true. And again, I empathize with him, and I think a lot of retail investors as to like, yeah, why like large FDV VC coin launches are not attractive. I think I take issue with like positioning these as, competitive or like, replacement products of like, oh, well, instead of the VCs backing the thing, we do the meme coin. I'm like, okay. And like, how does that actually like get money to builders who are like building the shit that you're using? Like, this is just like a totally different, like I think ICOs, yes, are maybe competitive with venture in terms of, capital formation and sort of early stage backing and creation and funding of new ideas. But like meme coins don't do that. Like, I think that's why I would pick on the utility side. I'm like, okay, you said the same thing 20 times and these are not products. Like this is just people getting together to like pump a token.
Yeah, it does feel like there's a populist appeal to this idea that the VC coins are done. The meme coins are on the rise. Rob from Dragonfly made a tweet this morning that I thought was very good, which is, the difference between meme coins and VC coins is just there's a different cabal that's making the money before you do. And I think in the late stage, and I've made this point before, I think in early stage meme coins and late stage meme coins are quite different. And we're now
There's
very
stages.
much in the late stage.
I love
There's
it.
very
I
much
love
stages.
It.
Yeah.
I know, but
it's
funny to hear that phrase. I haven't. To me, that was the first time I ever heard someone say
the same thing was true with NFTs.
Coins.
Like in the early stage of NFTs, it really was people who were in for the love of the game, and it was like you had to have like hash masks was a genuine moment of inspiration, and they were trying new things. And then by late stage NFTs, it was just a formula. It was like every single day somebody is just just vomiting out a new collection, and we see which one wins for the day and which one goes up and down. And the life cycles get shorter and they get more brutal, and the whitelists are more predictable. And the same thing is happening with meme coins, is that we sort of know it's increasingly congealing into, okay, there's the Murads and there's the Ansems, and you got to get on their radars, and you got to pump this thing in the right way, and you got to do this. The extractiveness of markets that are mature is just a feature of anything where there's too much retail money. It's always going to happen. So it doesn't matter if it's NFTs, it doesn't matter if it's tokens, whatever it is. It'll find its way such that the average buyer who is not sophisticated is going to get hurt if they don't know what they're doing, or if they're not, very explicitly being protected. Meme coins, I think it's pretty obvious at this point. I mean, the backlash against Pump.Fund has grown to such an extent that I feel like now it's the modal view that Pump.Fund is not good for retail and that most people are losing money on these platforms. They're not making money. So the idea that this is in general good for people, I think like that's hard to justify. The idea that it's good for people who are not VCs can make money, that's definitely true, right? The Murads of the world and the people who know how to play the game. It's a game that, yes, VCs have no advantage in, and folks who do understand that game can make money. And so to Tom's point, I can understand why, if you're a Murad, you want to tell the story. The thing that seems also really obvious to me, though, is that, I mean, again, there's a distinction in my mind between something like WIF or Doge that, they just exist. They're probably never going to go away. They're self-sustaining, and there is really no cabal at the center of it. It's just,
Hey,
an emergent
WIF
phenomenon.
hasn't been on the sphere yet. Dog has not been on the sphere.
Sure. Maybe post when they're on the sphere, it'll finally get to that vaunted place where they're now like Doge. But I think for everything else, like all these new, what's the SPX 6900 and all these new meme coins that are popping up, Nero, that, they may have staying power. They may really develop this cult. They may be the flavor of the day. Nobody really knows. I think this thing is the thing that feels temporary. Like it's going to last for a while, but then it's eventually going to fall out the same way NFTs did, and it'll move on to something else. And the big thing, I was looking at this the other day because I was arguing with somebody about this, that, although it is true that meme coins are getting a lot of volume and a lot of attention, the reality is that it's still not what most people are trading. If you go look at the volumes on Binance or on Bybit, and you go look at the top 10 tokens, and one or two of them are meme coins. Most of them are VC coins, and most of the quote unquote VC coins, even ones that are still got unlocks to come, not just Solana, that still are spewing out unlocks, and the VCs are making money. They're still most of what people want to trade, because at the end of the day, most people don't want to feel like they're trading just random nonsense. I saw a tweet talking about this the other day, which I appreciated. And to your point, Tarun, it might be a geographic thing. I don't know, but most people they may be buying weird stuff. They might be buying XRP or buying Cardano or things that I don't necessarily think that are the most exciting technologies in the world, but they're buying things and they're doing something that they identify as research, and they're telling a story to themselves that they think is about technology. And that's important, that there actually be some aspiration about what they're doing, and that they're not just gambling with their friends. There are some people who just want to gamble with their friends, and that's fine. But that's not what most people want to do or think that they're doing when they're investing in crypto.
I think meme coins would benefit from the localization teams that most VC coins have, in the sense that there's a Chinese language description of what your protocol does. There's no Chinese language description of a meme.
Well, I think that's the idea. You don't need one, right? If it's
but some of them, I think some of them, I think actually the names are like puns in English or something, right? It's some
of them are
the ones that don't work.
I think some of them are just, exactly. I actually think there's that limitation, which is even more fundamental. Is I don't think the memes themselves translate.
Well,
Doge is easy. Doge is easy.
Yeah, the
right?
biggest one. The biggest ones are all kind of obvious, right? You don't need to speak the language to understand it.
Right. But SPX 6900, I don't know. That might be hard, right? I'm just saying.
I agree.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. Does seem somewhat esoteric, I will say. I mean, it's on the nose if you're familiar with that. If you're familiar with the memes, anyway.
Components.
Cool. Yeah. Components. Yes, exactly. Robert, do you want to give the last word on meme coins? We'll move on.
Yes, I think the biggest problem I have is the sillier the meme, the more successful it generally is. We're talking about SPX 69,000.
You've become so tradfi.
I've become a boomer. I know. You can rag on me after the show.
Is that a unicorn on your shirt? I feel like that's. What is that on your shirt, Robert?
I don't even know. I found an old T-shirt in my closet.
Okay, that's very tradfi of you. All right. This is like a team building exercise or something. Okay. Nice. I would say,
I think it's my wife's T-shirt.
I remember during the NFT boom, I had this idea that we should create an index fund of NFTs called the NFT 500. Sadly, no one ever did that. And mechanically, I don't know that it's really possible to do that with NFTs, but I'm glad to see somebody finally was able to make that meme work. So good for them. Only best wishes to no, not financial advice, but only best wishes to the SPX 6900 community.
I mean, I do think it's funny imagining the person who made that like going home for Thanksgiving and they're like, "So what'd you do this year?" I invented SPX 6900.
No. It's like 70 cents. If it hits 6,900, I quit the.
No. The actual S&P is like 58, 59 right now.
Oh, you mean if the S&P 500?
Well, it's SPX 6,900, so it's a reference to the S&P.
Yeah. If who knows? Probably this thing is going to.
We thought Memecoins would get lost in translation to non-English speakers, but apparently they even get lost in translation to English speakers.
Even to financial investors, turns out. Okay. All right. Let's go back to VC coins. This is a VC coin podcast after all. So let's talk about Unichain. So Uniswap this week or last week made a really big announcement during permissionless conference that they are launching their own chain, a layer 2 on top of the Optimism Superchain. So what is Unichain? Unichain is an implementation of the OP stack. It has reduced transaction fees because, of course, it's a roll up, so it's not going to have anywhere near the fees that Ethereum Layer 1 has. It's going to have 1 second block times, which is pretty standard for chains that are part of the super chain. However, they partnered up with Flashbots, and Flashbots is going to be making a trusted execution environment based block builder. So essentially, that's a kind of trusted hardware that allows them to make blocks faster than the 1 second block time. So they're going to create these 250 millisecond sub blocks that allow basically really fast confirmations, even before the full block is actually produced. And because it's trusted hardware, you can trust the design, whatever, we don't have to go into details. This created a lot of conversation about this move. So they're the first real DeFi protocol in Ethereum to verticalize and build their own chain. Now, Uniswap, much like Aave and Compound, launched on many different chains first. So Uniswap is on almost every single EVM compatible chain you can think of that has meaningful volume. And the way that people thought about Uniswap was that the way they go multi-chain is by going horizontal, meaning that they have an instance of Uniswap that has segregated liquidity on every single chain. So on every single chain, you can one click go trade on Uniswap. Now the architecture is going to be, presumably, they haven't described exactly yet how they're going to be driving liquidity, but the idea is that people go to Unichain to make their trades. And ideally, it sucks up a bunch of the liquidity from layer 1, from Ethereum, from Arbitrum, from Base, from some of these other platforms where Uniswap is deployed, and congregates that liquidity into one place. And from their perspective, this is good for users because this means lower fees. It also means less MEV. It means a better trading experience because the latency is going to be lower. But of course, from the perspective, and there are a lot of flow through effects from doing this. From the perspective of users and from the perspective of Unitoken, this is a big boon because now it means that Unitoken is going to be accreting more value if it's used as the validator. Something of how you get the fees that are created on Unichain, as well as users are going to get better execution. It remains to be seen, though, are they going to be able to actually suck up that liquidity and get people to start depositing capital? Are they going to create a bunch of incentives to push the deposits there away from where it currently lives? And second, is this bad for Ethereum? Is this going to be sucking up some Ethereum DeFi and pulling some of that capital and pulling some of that demand into Unichain? So this has triggered a lot more conversation and hand-wringing in the Ethereum community about, oh crap, is the roll-up based scaling architecture that we've embraced actually, in a way, leading to our own demise? So there's a lot to work with there. Want to get everyone's reactions. I'll start with Tom. What do you think about Unichain?
It's funny. I think Dan Elitzer from Nascent had this post like over 2 years ago talking about how Unichain was inevitable. And I think it felt, very out there at the time. I think even Vitalik didn't like it, and now here we are with Unichain. I think it makes sense. Like it's in some ways weird that the largest application does not have its own L2, and like all these other smaller, crappier applications do have their own L2. I think the Flashbot stuff is actually, it's very cool. Obviously, we're investors in Flashbots, but I think it's underrated in terms of a better way for these apps that have their own L2s to monetize, and that you now have a sort of trustless, arm's length way to get way better UX and to internalize your MEV. All the other sort of MEV recapture methods for apps right now are like very kind of hacky, and it's like, oh, you have to like send your transactions to this separate mempool, and like it's just shitty. But hey, if we're all using the same L2, great. Let's just be this private, separate thing, and obviously the revenue goes back into the app itself, which is great. I think there was a question of like how many Uniswap transactions are sort of self-contained within Uniswap. A lot of the transactions that we've seen obviously are going across different applications. So people are running arbitrages, or they're swapping into Uniswap to then go do something else. Like I need to go pay in one currency, I'm going to go swap into Uniswap and then atomically go do something else. I think Unichain is a bet that people just want to go to Uniswap to trade, and this is obviously going to be a better experience for them. Or maybe someday down the line, they can have their own sort of robust dev ecosystem on the chain itself. But it feels like today, maybe just, segregating out some of this flow will make it better for both people versus having it sort of be co-located.
Yeah, it's a good point. The Unichain is fully EVM compatible, so you can deploy smart contracts and create other applications besides Uniswap itself. So that's an important note. Robert, what's your take?
I'm going to focus on a small part of this, not a large part of this. I think the most interesting effect might be on where tokens are natively issued and how they're bridged. Right now, the vast majority of assets are issued either on Ethereum L1 or Solana L1. And those are basically your two picks. There's very few teams out there that issue a token where the core, issuance and, accounting of it is on some L2. It's been very rare. Oftentimes it's like you start on the base and it's bridged to an L2. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the most interesting side effects of this is that teams start to rethink where tokens are natively issued. And we start to see things that are issued on maybe even Unichain, but maybe other chains like Optimism or Arbitrum or wherever. Because if tokens become more mobile in terms of their trading and transacting, and it's like less of an opportunity cost to be hidden away in this L2, I think you might see teams start to prefer, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's just a lower cost, ledger for us to track ownership on of like the root asset. And you might start to see teams for the first time really move away from like, oh, we can only issue on Ethereum or Solana. And I think the biggest beneficiary, ironically, is not going to be, necessarily even Unichain. It might be other L2s, might indirectly benefit from this in, I think, unanticipated ways.
Why do you think this makes people want to issue on L2s? I didn't totally follow the rationale.
If you're creating a new token, right, and you're like, currently thinking about issuing it on Ethereum, which is, for those that go in the EVM world where 99.99% of tokens are first issued, there's some coming on base, they live on base natively, but like, costs and transaction volumes are prohibitive. It's why like Ethereum has lost to Solana in a lot of ways with the whole Memecoin arena, is because, $3 per click, is too much for people and they want to have, a fraction of a cent per click. And so the biggest problem though, if you're in the EVM world of going to an L2 has been like, it's really hard to go from an L2 to other places, right? It's much easier to go. It's much easier for a token to move from Ethereum to many different L2s, et cetera. And like, yes, there's cross-chain interoperability solutions out the wazoo to help solve this. But like a simplification of this is everything in the EVM world is issued on Ethereum. And then it can move from there. And I think, we might see a renaissance here in unanticipated ways where people are like, you know what, like, let's all just start issuing tokens on Arbitrum or Optimism or Base or wherever, and then later, they can be traded through Unichain more easily, and the interoperability expands, and so native issuance moves away from Ethereum. So Ethereum might be a bigger loser, and L2s and other EVM chains might be bigger winners outside of just having the biggest application sort of leave.
Yeah, Tarun, what's your take?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Tom. I think the most interesting thing is the Flashbots piece by far. Like, I think, well, what's the phrase? If you attract the most hate when you launch a new product, that means that you must have done something right, something like akin to that. And I feel like there was, obviously they attracted a lot of, I think the other L2s, there was a lot of L2 on L2 violence on Twitter after this launch. I'm mainly focused on the Flashbots piece, so that's a data point that I would use. I think it's actually, the MEV capture thing is nice. I think the 250 millisecond block time makes it competitive with Solana. And I still think there's going to be some like UX issues overall. Like I feel like I'm still not convinced that we've gotten to a point where the UX really feels sufficiently good, but I'm hoping to be wowed, like when it launches, that like, hey, there's something they've thought through the Superchain interoperability stuff. I'm a little skeptical from what I've seen code base wise, but like, maybe there's some secret. I'm hoping there's some secret sauce. To Lester's point, I do kind of agree. The reason Ethereum has sort of been losing its monetary premium is people don't want to issue new assets there. Like, it doesn't have the asset creation velocity that other places have. I remember in 2020 and 2021, I used to follow these Telegram groups that would tell you like new Uniswap pools, and you could like see the velocity at which there would be. That was just the proxy for new tokens, right? Because like at that time, and you can just kind of see the like new pool creation really decayed quickly. So I think for Uniswap to continue the network effect of like, hey, I want people routing order flow across many pools all the time. You need to win back the asset creation market. So you need to win back the place where you're the primary market. I think that what Robert's getting at is really that, right? Like that's the thing Ethereum lost. And so the question is, will an L2 win back that title? And I'm not convinced. I'm just saying, like, to me, that's the measure of success, is like if they win that.
I think that's really only true for meme coins, though. Like if you look at any of the new, larger tokens that have launched in the past year, they've launched natively on Ethereum or Solana. Like I don't think people are willing to take the risk of launching a token for their new startup on an L2 that is brand new. And
I think for Uniswap, it has the highest like sort of network value growth from new assets and fees from routing across, right? And I think like if there isn't that, it's different than being good for the asset itself versus for the network effect of Uniswap routing, right? Of like generating fees overall. And if we think about the sequencer fees and the Uni token holder implied fees coming from that, you want the new asset creation. I think like that's just going to be a fundamental thing. And that's sort of where I'm like, I don't know, like I don't know how to predict that.
I agree that Uniswap wants that. It seems like a big leap to say that they're likely to get it.
Sorry, I'm not saying they're likely to get it. I'm just saying that is the indicator of success of this. That like I don't really have a prediction of, to be honest. I need to see what the UX feels like, right? Like, does it feel like Phantom trading meme coins on Phantom? If so, then like, yeah, sure, why not? Like I could, right? But like it needs to feel like Phantom. And this gets back to this fact that, a lot, and this is anecdotal, but like a lot of people I know who know nothing about crypto, but who like meme coins because they're funny or cutesy or whatever, they think Phantom is Solana. They don't even think Solana is Solana. They're like, I'm trading meme coins on Phantom, right? Like, and the UX feels good enough that they don't even have to learn that there's Solana underneath. I feel like if this is what you kind of need for this to flourish.
Let me ask you guys a more pointed question. Let's say fast forward a year from now. I think Unichain is going to launch like toward the end of this year or something, in a month or something like that.
Testnet is live, but
yeah, testnet's live, but I think mainnet is like a month or something away, something like that. Within a few months, it'll be out. Fast forward to, let's say, this time next year, October next year. What percentage of Uniswap volume would you predict is going through Unichain? Tom, what would your prediction be?
Like all Uniswap volume or percentage of ETH volume?
What percentage of Uniswap volume is going through Unichain?
I'm going to go 20%, 25%, 25%.
25%. I will say, I think 10%.
I will go with 13%.
True.
I was trying to do some very tiny research in that. I think
no
research. That's against the spirit of the bet.
Bullshit.
Okay, so I think whatever volume is on Uniswap X will get migrated naturally, because it's like they control the auction and front end for that. So
Okay,
why
so
wouldn't you move it?
This is so much
My-
MEV you're extracting while looking up these dashboards.
Yeah, I know.
but I know. But I
Give us
I
a
don't-
number.
I can't.
Give us a number.
I can't. Find,
We agreed to do the bet in Red Bull. You got to give us a number.
I'll go low. 9.
9. Okay, so all right, interesting.
Haseeb
Very
got
interesting.
sandwich attacked.
Yeah, I definitely did. I got absolutely fucked by that ordering. But I guess what I was going to say is that I am relatively bearish on this thing actually taking up most of Uniswap's volume. And it sounds like you guys are all too. Given these estimates, you guys think that Uniswap is not going to drive that hard to push the liquidity from all of these native chains into Unichain.
My back of the envelope is like Uniswap native to L1 and L2 or whatever, however you want to call it, is pretty much deeply integrated into the ecosystem of whatever lives on that chain, right? Like if you're using it on Ethereum, like, you know, you're not even using it through the Uniswap interface most of the time. You're using it through 0x and 1inch and like all of these other like platforms, right? And so no matter what, even if Unichain is like incredibly successful, like in my head, it's like, well, what percent of the user flow are they going to be able to take? Even if we're 100%, you know, adoption of that user flow somehow miraculously being on Unichain, I still think they're only batting like 30% of total Uniswap volume. And so, you know, I figure it's like, okay, of like, and I haven't looked up the numbers. I wasn't soft cheating like Tarun as he was typing while we were making this bet. But, you know, my hunch is that like, you know, 2/3 of their volume at this point doesn't come from like Uniswap interface products. And of that, they could probably get 1/3 of it somehow to move. So that's how I got to like, you know, trying to with a little over 10.
Tarun, what was your rationale?
I guess, yeah, if I think about to kind of emphasize Robert's point, I think about the integrations aspect and the fact that like other contracts will automatically trade against Uniswap to net their positions. Like other DeFi protocols already have them built in, right? You don't have that ecosystem on the chain on day one, right? It's not like all those apps immediately move and integrate and whatever. And then this is why I was making the connection to Uniswap X and sort of the order flow auction type of stuff is like that stuff can move more easily than the integrations because it's like fresh. And also it comes from their front end. So it's like very directly tied. So I sort of feel like that stuff will move and then everything else just requires you building the ecosystem locally and or new assets coming on. Like this is why I'm saying the new asset thing is important. I think you need to like have new pools such that there's pools to route through. If there's only ETH-USDC and WBTC USDC and like a couple other pools, then you don't get the network effect from like the routing fees to the sequencer fees. And then it's like not, you know, so I think you really do need this new asset thing and ecosystem so that you get the kind of network effect they have in the other places.
So hearing your guys' descriptions, at first I thought I was the odd one out in thinking that, okay, you know, this is a classic example of it being difficult to disrupt your own business in that, you know, Uniswap has won on almost every chain. It is dominant. You know, Base is like probably the only chain that is deployed on that it's not dominant. And driving that liquidity away from these places. I mean, they can do it. They have the token emission incentives and you know, probably a lot of those LPs, they can kind of nudge and say, hey, you know, get onto Unichain and you'll get some extra rewards. They can push people there. It's easiest to push the Uniswap X volume there because it's just some market makers who have to go put some inventory there and they get the flow from the front end and they say, okay, this front end automatically is serving on Unichain. The natural constraint is that it's just difficult to move a lot of money in and out of the superchain to the same degree as it is if your customer's on Ethereum and you're like, oh, you know, go bridge into the Unichain and then bridge back out to like go get your capital out or like go do it is some intense-based bridge and jump in. You know, there's just a lot of complexity to make that happen, and users are lazy. Protocols are lazy. Like, you know, you see this happening now with Sky and Makers. That it's just difficult to get people to change their integrations. There's just a lot of friction when everybody has kind of built their smart contracts and their UX and their things around certain expectations of you know, how they're interacting with you. And I think Uniswap will honestly probably get scared at a certain point when they realize people aren't moving on their own. And they'll say, look, we don't want to we don't want to take that big of a risk. Like, this is cool. We want to internalize some of our flow. We want to internalize some of that MEV that we're right now leaking, especially on the Uniswap X side. That feels pretty free. But for a lot of this other stuff, it's not worth trying to disrupt our own liquidity. I mean, you see the same thing with V2, right? V2, there's still a bunch of V2 pools that even like however many years later, it's hard to get rid of them because there's just liquidity in there and it's just sloshing around doing its thing. And part of it obviously V2 works for certain use cases, but also part of it is just that people were lazy. It took a really long time for all that capital to move from V2 to V3. And my guess is they'll see the same thing with respect to Unichain.
I agree with a lot of that. I do think, one thing to maybe not discount is, every dollar of retail flow that moves over to Unichain also substantially shrinks the denominator here, which is like, all the sort of bot and MEV activity that occurs on the main chain, right? Because, hey, if you're not actually moving market price, there's not going to be price location, there's that MEV to extract. And so, if you are moving that retail flow effectively, you're actually very much shrinking the sort of, flow that you're sort of offsetting on the main chain. And so it's not like the current number is the high watermark that you're trying to eat into, but it's actually the two are sort of working synergistically. So I don't know. I think as Tarun was saying, with Uniswap X, they sort of naturally built to be cross-chain with this sort of intent architecture. I was also just checking orderflow.art. So between the Uniswap front end and Uniswap X, it's about 30% of all flow is going through a Uniswap interface. It doesn't seem infeasible to me that they can direct, some percentage of that over to this new chain and then in tandem sort of shrank a lot of the bot and sort of MEV extraction activity that's happening on mainnet.
Yeah, and to be fair, I sort of, again, just view Unichain's success as new assets go there, not exist. Like, there obviously need to be existing assets, but I really do feel like the new asset creation effect is what got V2 its network effect and people routing, which then they could expand with V3. And I think like Ethereum has sort of lost that in terms of asset velocity, not in terms of like volume, like not in terms of market cap of asset. And it ceded that to Solana, right? So like if you're trying to compete back on that, then but Base's new asset issuance is still kind of low. Like it's compared to Solana, it's actually like the Base Memecoins didn't really go that far. Obviously they've created top 100 assets like Aerodrome and stuff, but that's a different beast. But I guess my point is just more like, I think Unichain's success should be that it can attract that new asset creation back from Solana, right? That to me, that seems like the number one KPI. And that is going to be totally different order flow than the current order flow.
I mean, when you're saying new asset creation, it feels like that's code for Memecoins. Because like what else are we talking about?
I think in a lot of cases, yes. Like, but this goes to my point. Like, there will be also like non-Memecoin VC coins that might also over time see what's working and change their habits.
Yeah, I'm just very skeptical of this story. Like every single token that I have seen that was launched in the Ethereum ecosystem within the last 2 years that's VC backed, I can't think of a single one that's in the EVM ecosystem that's not on Ethereum mainnet. Like literally can't think of a single one. Like if you decide I'm going to list my token and natively issue it on like almost anything else, it's tougher to get custodian integrations, tougher to get, listed on CoinGecko, on CoinMarketCap, and just like all this stuff is harder for you for basically no reason.
Well, Aerodrome is a great example though. That's why.
Yeah. Aerodrome is the only example on page 1 of CoinMarketCap of an EVM token that is not primarily listed on Ethereum because it is a base token.
But I think for Unichain that you want to be able
and it's
to
not and also it's not VC backed, right? Isn't that the guy's whole thing, is that they're not VC backed?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's true. I guess my point is just more like, I think that you want to bring back that market, right? Like why are you competing on all these fronts that are meant to be like lower MEV,
that'd be
faster
great.
latency?
That would be amazing if you can do that. I just think it's like really freaking hard. Like that does not feel like a realistic goal.
That's why when you said 1 year, it was hard to be like, oh yeah, like 50%, right?
I was gonna say, we're just gonna come back here October 14th, 2025. And wait, is it 1 year from launch or 1 year from today?
1 year from today.
From launch. Wait, from today. Oh, from today? Oh, then
that way we know when the bet ends. It's supposed to come out in like a month or so. So it should be doable. Although my understanding is that all those features will not be there. Like the Flashbots TE stuff is not going to be live on day one. But that's on the roadmap to have that up and running eventually.
I think they're going to have the block streaming, but it's like a very scoped down set of what Flashblocks is doing, or Rollup Boost. I told them they need to work on the naming convention a little bit. Too many formats going around.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. No, I like this idea. The other thing about this story that really struck me was that, if we're all wrong, and Uniswap is incredibly successful at galvanizing volume and getting this native DeFi ecosystem to come over to Unichain and build stuff. And as you mentioned, natively launch tokens and create it as a sort of system of record for DeFi assets or Memecoins or whatever. That seems really bad for Ethereum. And it's kind like the way that I was at a dinner and I was talking about this with some folks from the Uniswap team. The way I described it is it's like Ethereum is kind of the super tanker. It's like very difficult for it to respond to new threats or new emerging changes in the meta. You can see it's taken this long to respond to Solana, and now there's this increasing conversation about lower block times and becoming more snappy from a UX perspective. I think if something like this were to happen, that basically there's a roll up that just sucks up a huge amount of the TVL from layer one, I think that's kind of game over. I think it's like, okay, there's no way that Ethereum is going to get it back.
Unichain's biggest competitor isn't Ethereum, it's Hyperliquid, because they're both trying to build DeFi ecosystems at exactly the same time.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I don't think that's really true.
Liquidity-wise, they're competing. I think like liquidity-wise, it's biggest competitors.
Hyperliquid's a derivatives exchange, and there's nowhere near the
Hyperliquid is going to have. No, but it's going to have the same.
They announced it. They announced that they're launching their chain and it's EVM compatible, so you can launch.
But there's a ton of protocols going there. Like I'm telling you, that is a bigger competitor for them than me.
I totally disagree with this. I think that if Uniswap is successful, it's going to be almost entirely a zero sum sort of withdrawal from all these other chains that are going to lose a lot of their liquidity and lose a lot of their TVL to Unichain. Right? I mean, that's kind of the vision.
Have you ever looked at the Hyperliquid bridge?
How much TVL is there in Hyperliquid?
That's literally the thing you're talking about.
From Arbitrum?
It's the biggest contract in Arbitrum.
Yeah, how much TVL?
I want to say over $1 billion at least.
Okay, so Arbitrum is what, like 4 billion, 5 billion TVL?
Yeah, it's 958 million.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, sure. Uniswap is not aiming for 950 million of TVL, right? They're aiming for, I'm going to suck up all the liquidity from Ethereum. Like, that's the wild success case. Again, I don't think it's likely to happen, but I don't know. Do you guys think that this is a unfounded view that if Uniswap chain is really successful, that it kind of fucks Ethereum mainnet?
I kind of think it does. Like, forget the fact that Uniswap is basically one of the biggest gas consumers of Ethereum. Like there will still be gas consumption even if it moves because, for the from trades executed on Ethereum, like even if it's settled, it'll go up there and that's a transaction and all this stuff. Like losing your top application to its own chain, is only a net negative.
And the fees and the MEV and the TVL and all that stuff, it just DeFi goes away.
Yeah, a huge amount of activity could go away. We'll have to check back in a year.
Okay, yeah. We'll check back in a year.
Slight change. I just so Jeff doesn't get mad at me. It's 624 million.
I was gonna say that was 600, but
yeah, it's 624. I looked at the wrong. I added two things that were
okay. Got it. Good real time correction. Okay. One last story I want to get through. We'll move away from this and we'll talk about another anxiety producing topic, which is the election. So we are only now 3 weeks away from the U.S. presidential election. And right now, we're still in a dead heat between Kamala and Trump. Prediction markets have been moving a little bit at the margin. It doesn't matter that much, but it's going now closer to 55-45 Trump-Kamala. Still basically a coin flip. But we've been lamenting for a while that Kamala Harris has not really made clear what her agenda is going to be with respect to crypto or digital assets. She's been saying a few positive things in speeches, but nothing actually as part of her platform. Until today, we just got the first piece of Kamala policy that relates to crypto, and it came in a very weird package. So she laid out what she calls her opportunity agenda for Black men. So just a little bit of backstory. There was some reporting, I think in the New York Times over the weekend, that Kamala is losing ground among black men in particular in terms of her support. Obama came out to try to scold some of the black men communities who are not fully supporting Kamala. And weirdly, Trump has started to gain in the both black and Hispanic men demographics relative to 2020 and 2016. So people are in the Democratic Party are a little bit concerned of like, oh shit, why are we losing some of the minority, especially minority men? And so she announced this opportunity agenda for black men, presumably try to win back some of the black vote. There's some stuff in there about forgivable loans for black entrepreneurs up to $20,000, legalizing recreational marijuana and allowing black men to be able to work in the marijuana industry. And then on digital assets, this is the line, she will make sure owners of and investors in digital assets benefit from a regulatory framework so that black men and others who participate in this market are protected. So that was the line. That's all we got with respect to, it's still pretty unclear, but it got crypto Twitter pretty weirded out, I think, by the statement of black men and other people to be protected in crypto. So I think a lot of people found the framing of this note of crypto policy to be somewhat disingenuous. Curious to get your folks' reactions to this opportunity, or sorry, what's it called? The opportunity agenda for black men and her stance on crypto there.
I honestly have no opinion or kind of, it just feels like she clearly, if we compare Trump's crypto policy, where he talks about pardoning Dread Pirate Roberts, and we compare that to this, it's like, Jesus Christ. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, I might as well just like walk myself out the door right now. There's nothing to say.
Yeah, I feel like Trump took the most like naive and therefore effective approach of just like someone else wrote up this list of shit that people in the crypto industry want to hear that they want him to do. And he just like read it and we're like, yes, that's great. And I feel like Kamala's doing everything to like not do the most obvious things and just like say the very simple things people want to hear. And it's like weird shit like this. Like why is it so hard to just copy this one for one? Like people want very simple regulations. They want to know that the US is going to be a home for crypto. Like they want to hear or say, fucking free Ross, even if she doesn't meet it. Like, and instead there's just like this weird shit. And there's also this like, they said
stuff where there's stuff where it's not even clear like how you would implement such a thing. Like, sorry, do I have to add metadata to every address that says my race? Like, what? The entire thing is ridiculous.
I don't really know. I think there's a stat that like I think it came maybe out of that Coinbase survey that like black men in the U.S. are disproportionately more likely to own crypto than other investors, but this feels like kind of a stretch. Like I think things that would be good for the industry would be good for everybody, and so it's like why make this part of this?
Yeah, well, also why talk? Yeah,
program.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like these things should be more like equal opportunity things, and it's like sort of like this one was shoved in with some other things where it makes a lot of sense to discriminate on that basis. This one doesn't make any fucking sense. Like,
Robert, what's your take?
My take is, I feel like this is like a rider attached to a bill, essentially. Like this is like a policy attached to like a pandering package. And I don't think it's been that clearly thought through. I think it's still extraordinarily vague. And I think that, when it comes to the actual wording of this, you could read anything you want into it. Like if you're fearful of the existing Biden-Harris regime approach to crypto, you could read this and be like, she's literally just promising, more investor protection. We've heard those words before, and it doesn't lead to more innovation and more, entrepreneurship and more, investor participation. Or you can read it and say, oh, she wants to create a regulatory framework for crypto. Like we've been waiting for this for 14 years. Thank goodness, I don't think, and this is like semantic parsing, like I don't think it's actually targeted where the policies will only be for Black investors. I believe the policies will be for everybody, and a large beneficiary group of us having a clear regulatory framework happens to be Black investors. But again, it's poorly worded and written, and it's pretty confusing.
Yeah, I don't think I have much to add, to be honest. It just feels like very late, close to the election pandering. And I don't know. I mean, I guess this is what happens in a close election is that you just start, giving away the pantry and, finding anything that anybody wants that'll get you some votes.
I just think it reflects poorly upon the ability to do research of whichever lobbyist wrote this.
This doesn't feel like it was written by a lobbyist. I mean,
whatever staff member wrote this.
Yeah, if a lobbyist wrote this, they need to get fired because this is absolutely horrible job at
poorly
doing anything
work.
for the crypto industry. Yeah, exactly. Like I do take this as evidence that Kamala is going to be better on crypto than Biden. And I know a lot of people doubt that, and a lot of people are like, well, give me the evidence, but everything that I have been seeing and hearing, some of which is public, some of which is not public, give me more and more reason to think that like Kamala just doesn't have this vendetta against crypto that Biden did.
I don't think it's Biden. I think it's some of the people in the administration. Like, I don't think Biden himself knows what crypto is. Like, I'm not 100% sure Kamala knows.
Biden did. I mean, first of all, Biden is really old, and he probably has a negative just kind of proclivity against crypto, the way that Trump did in his first term as well. And secondly, remember, SBF was the second largest donor to Biden's campaign.
Biden has never used the word crypto or blockchain, to my knowledge. There was an executive memorandum that came from the Biden administration at one point.
There's almost no way that he doesn't have some opinion on it. I mean, it's been a hot topic, and he was the second biggest donor to his campaign. Almost certainly, it's on his radar, and he's intentionally not talked about it. Like, I don't think it's a mistake. Or an oversight. That
I don't know. There's no data either way, but there's no data to indicate that he is familiar with crypto.
I mean, Trump talked about crypto, and that was 4 years earlier, and that was before FTX blew up, and like this was national headlines for multiple days, and he didn't say a fucking word about it. Like, it's not because he's not paying attention.
As someone who doesn't generally feel that much affinity for Trump in many ways, but the one thing I'm impressed by was the wallet thing where he was like, Barron has 4 wallets. It's like, like that for a grandfather, for like granddaddy talking like that. That's fucking whatever. Father, like the grandfather age, like contemporary.
Well, I did not think about that.
Like that was if Biden even mentioned the word wallet, I would probably pass out and just out of like, what the fuck happened?
Wait, so hold on. So Trump was in his late 50s when he had Barron?
Yeah, the math works out.
Yeah,
I don't want.
But then you
got to
add
think
9
that
months,
much about.
So.
Just don't think too hard about it. Just think. I'm just trying to say, like, someone that age saying something about someone in college.
Thinking hard about it because that's very bizarre. Well, okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't give him much credit for that. I feel like that. No,
but my point is like that's such a low bar to step. That's like the bare minimum step stool, and like Biden's falling over the stool. He can't even like get on.
Sure. Well, look, Biden's not running for president, so I think that situation did eventually resolve.
Look, as someone from Delaware, it pains me that the most famous person from my state is Biden. It's like really embarrassing.
Okay, well, I'm glad that we got our Delaware fact for the episode. Thank you, Tarun, for that recurring segment. I guess with that, we can wrap. We'll be back next week. The election is getting closer, so markets will probably be pretty wild between now and then. But until then, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.